Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida. Dude, I'm telling you, dude. Dr. Narco Longo came on and dropped the hammer of the god.
America's mother, daughter of Atlantis. God sent the weatherland. The devil sent the Spanish. Florida is Eden, the fountain of youth. Cali is deception. So Florida is the truth.
Welcome to Florida, baby.
Dr. Narco Longo.
Florida, it is everything. There's too much truth bombs being dropped. I can't digest it all.
Old World, Florida.
I'm the wrong guy.
Please welcome Dr. Narco Longo.
Howdy, everybody. It's Monday night. We're coming to you live from Palm Beach, Florida. We're in the Dancing Elephant bookstore, Florida's #1 metaphysical book and crystal store. And we're not going to waste too much time tonight. A little bit of a last-minute episode, but boy, is it worth it. We've got a heavy hitter guest tonight. If you know Old World, Florida, if you've been following me at all, you'll definitely know who our guest is and how much respect I have for him, how much, I've taken from him unashamedly, all glory to Santos, because as far as the astro etymology, the astro theology, he's a legend. So, like I said, we won't waste too much time. We're going to be talking about Giordano Bruno, the Jesuits, and geocentric astrology. And we might go off in some other directions. That's okay. But we've got my brother here, Shane. You guys have seen him before. We've got Tony, a somewhat new face. And, of course, we've got Santos. So we won't waste too much of Santos's time. Santos, how are you doing today?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me and reaching out, because this is great. Just the bookstore and the esoteric wisdom in there, and the Giordano Bruno theme that you actually your bookstore is releasing. Yates, what's her name?
Francis.
Yeah.
Francis Yates. Yeah. So you're gonna redo that, rework it, and have modern graphics all through the book. It's about time, man. Giordano Bruno really needs to be known. His consciousness and what he inputted into the field. It has to be recognized, like Leonardo da Vinci, Pythagoras, etc.
Right. Now, thanks again for being here, Santos. Shane, would you like to give a little background on Giordano Bruno, who he is, why we're talking about him, and what the book's all about? And then after that, Tony, if you would maybe give just a little breakdown of how this all came together. And
no
ahead,
problem. So we all run a company called Galloglass Books out of the Dancing Elephant, which is our bookstore in South Florida. And me and Tony put together this book, which is Giordano Bruno in the Hermetic tradition by Francis Yates. Like Santos said, he's somebody who is not read enough. He's somebody who's glossed over. Many people, when they're thinking of the Renaissance, do not think of Giordano Bruno, which is probably a mistake, almost definitely a mistake, because he's one of the great geniuses, could be listed with, like you said, Da Vinci, Pythagoras, etc. This book is the definitive book on Bruno. Yeats was a British scholar. Francis Yeats was a British scholar operating out of the Warburg Institute. The Warburg family is interesting, but they do operate a sort of scholarly institute in England that puts a lot of funding into occult studies. And one of their top dogs was Frances Yates, and she dedicated a large portion of her life to studying Bruno and wrote this book. The book is extremely important, not just for, being the definitive book on Giordano Bruno, but also being one of the definitive books on the Renaissance as far as occultism goes, Renaissance philosophy, the entire intellectual scene of the Renaissance is covered in this book. So there are chapters on Campanella, on Robert Flood, on all of these other people. So it's a comprehensive book. We thought that, it's an extremely important book. A lot of people have been really influenced by it. I know Santos has. People like Terence McKenna and others have cited this book as being extremely important to understanding the Renaissance, to get into the headspace that somebody would be in back then. Because we're usually led to believe that the Renaissance, while it was kind of artistic and free in some respects, it was still all on top of a Catholic dogmatic worldview. Not the case. And Frances Yates blows that to pieces by proving to you and showing you that, not just Bruno, but many other people during the Renaissance were operating within a Hermetic tradition. So a tradition based on ancient Egyptian wisdom, on Neoplatonic wisdom that had just come rushing back from the East after the fall of Constantinople. Some of the most powerful families paid to have the Hermetic works and the works of Plato translated into Latin right away. And it caused quite a stir during the Renaissance. And, all of these intellectuals and interesting philosophers during the Renaissance used those works to craft their own version of Christianity. They were still Christian. Like Bruno would be considered a Christian, and people like Cornelius Agrippa would be considered a Christian, or Pico, but they are also using Kabbalah. They're using astrology. They're dabbling in magic. They're doing things with memory and all kinds of other esoteric occult fields, and they're operating within a Hermetic tradition, basically. So we decided it would be worthwhile to republish the work with colored images, because it's never been done with colored images. It always had black and white, and to professionally typeset it and put it in this kind of beautiful format. I guess Tony can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Tony, go ahead and talk a little bit about. I was just going to say, go ahead and talk about how the book came to fruition.
Absolutely. So what we decided to do after reading the book was completely restore the interior and get a beautiful sort of Vienna Secession inspired cover. If you've read this book before, you've probably noticed that it's just filled with black and white images or references to images that Yeats has not included. And so over the past, I'd say, year, Shane and I emailed all sorts of museums, libraries, and institutions across the world. This includes the Uffizi in Florence, the Paris National Library, Warburg Institute, as Shane mentioned, and even the Vatican, which was pretty crazy because the Vatican, if you're not familiar with Giordano Bruno, they actually burnt him at the stake. And we decided to introduce new images like paintings by Raphael, Botticelli, and various sigils that Yeats references.
Nice.
Yeah, that's one of the funny kind of tidbits is we actually had to get in touch with the Vatican, like he just said, to license some of these images because they own the rights to some of these pictures. They're famous paintings, they're frescoes inside areas of the Vatican. And it's so ironic because the Vatican literally burned this guy alive, and we're doing a book on him. And we're like, hey, can we have permission to use the stuff? It was pretty funny. And they were pretty reluctant. They tried not responding. They tried ghosting us. And Tony was really persistent.
For months, they'd send back one response for every 3 emails that I sent, or not respond at all. And so I had to continuously go up and up the hierarchy. And finally, I emailed the director of the Vatican Museums, and she put all the ducks in a row for us and enabled us to get these images. What was also funny is that the Vatican did not actually know what I was asking for when I was pulling up various images, let's say, inside of the Borgia apartments, showing all sorts of syncretic things like a Renaissance depiction of the god Apis or Osiris. And we actually have some of the only depictions of some of these images that are online. You can't find them anywhere else.
Yeah, if you scroll through it, there are more pictures on that page.
Okay.
Dr. Longo. You can see some of the colored images. If you scroll...
Well, let me scroll down.
There should be. Oh.
Yeah, you have to scroll down all the way.
Well, let me... Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah, nice. I guess
so those are lapis-backed astrological allegories, depictions.
Yeah.
In the Palazzo Ferrara, and it's of a court that it's included in this huge court room, almost like a ballroom, where every single panel of the room is filled with some sort of allegory, an astrological syncretic image, and it's a masterpiece of the Renaissance that's completely underrated by all scholarly acclaims, and we've got some incredible images of it in here.
That's in the Vatican as well, right?
No, this one is in a small town, I believe, near Venice.
Oh, really? Yeah, these are like if you scroll to the top, those are the 3 deacons of Aries. Oh, sorry, those guys. You know, depicted obviously as people or characters, and they have that for every sign. So if you look at the walls, it just looks like paintings, beautiful paintings, but if you look closer, it's all symbolic, metaphorical. So it just it's a glimpse into what was going in the Renaissance. They were all astrology crazy, Kabbalah crazy.
And also I'd like to get Santos's opinion on this. How important would color be in kind of getting the vibe off of this artistic interpretation, right? You want to see the red kind of coming through, right? You want to see right. So a black and white picture, maybe you're only getting half the sandwich, right? So these colored illustrations are a big
and they were expensive too. I don't mean expensive for us, but expensive to create those paintings, right? Those pigments that they're using when they're painting, like Dr. Long is saying, they're very purposeful. And the reason that you can tell they're purposeful is because they were not easy to produce. It would be way easier to not use that blue background. That blue background is made out of lapis lazuli. So they were crushing it up into paint and using it. And it was still is, but was extremely expensive.
Right. Santos, what do you think of the 3 deacons of Aries here? And does the color mean anything in a painting like this, or would a black and white image cut it?
Okay, so you'd have Cassiopeia, Perseus, of course, bringing in the sun in spring, and my screen went off. It flickers. So there's Perseus, there's Cassiopeia, and what's the third one? I'm thinking of Triangulum, which is the original deacon, but there's another one, Cetus. Okay, Cetus represents Yeah, the waters in the ocean are the waters in your ventricles. Okay, so Perseus must. Aries is the cerebrum. Oh, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the.
Oh yeah, here I'll show you that. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
There you go.
Well, so Aries being the cerebrum, Taurus the cerebellum. Okay. So there's Perseus, and then you've got Cetus. I don't know which one of those women represent that the ocean fish, but and then
So do you think that the blue background was used for that ocean, for the waters?
yeah, because your head's full of water, right? The brain's it's water, right? So the peoples, they need that water, and that's what the three deacons represent. Perseus is the cerebrum. It's the Christ. That's it. He is that lamb, Aries. And his other half is Cassiopeia, the Queen of Heaven. And that would be the two parts of the cerebrum. I won't say which hemisphere, left or right, because it doesn't matter. It's interchangeable for a start. But if you've got imagery like this in your book, guys, congratulations, man. I heard what you were saying, both of you, and that you're sourcing guys like Tommaso Campanella, who was from Calabria, where I come from, and a contemporary of Giordano Bruno and those guys, right? But Giordano Bruno, right? He, just circling back to him, they actually put a nail in his tongue. I better talk to the mic, otherwise I'm going to look silly. Let's see what okay. So they put a nail in his tongue and then burned him at the stake for teaching the truth, the perennial philosophy, the magnum opus.
Right.
So in republishing this Francis Yates masterpiece, which brought Giordano out of the dark, because Giordano Bruno was very influential. He was a friend of Queen Elizabeth I.
Yes.
Really?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He was trying to bring a sort of Christian republic in the true Protestant form, in the Hermetic form, to England. That's what Giordano Bruno's mission was, right? So, that's why she was defeated and what have you, had enemies and what have you, because he was bringing back the Egyptian ancient Hermetic, which is Moses, Enoch, Thoth, Mercury, Buddha, in all other languages, Quetzalcoatl, etc. He was trying to bring that back because, as you said, in the Renaissance, which was Tartaria, hence since having been destroyed, Marsilio Ficino, the guy who translated the Corpus Hermeticum, he said to the world, he said, Hermes is Moses.
Right. Yeah.
And we're still, well, Moses was a Jew or whatever, and he was actually a real character. No, it's Mercury in the sky.
Yeah.
It's the god of communication, divine wisdom.
Right. There's a great story too with Ficino where a whole host of documents had just been brought over from Byzantium, from Constantinople, after it fell to the Muslims. And which family was it, Tony? Or who was the guy who was in charge of
the Medici family?
So the Medici family, was it Cosimo?
Yes, it was Cosimo.
Yeah. So Cosimo Medici says to Marsilio Ficino, who's one of the smartest people alive, he says you have to translate these. And Ficino's like, okay, where do I start? You know, there's Plato, there's Plotinus, there's all the stuff. And Cosimo Medici says, start with the Corpus Hermeticum. And Ficino was like, what? He's like, you don't want me to start with Plato? And he said it's more important. And that tells you a lot. Because that's a real story. Ficino really started translating the Corpus Hermeticum into Latin before he translated Plato.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. Plato or Neoplatonism and Hermeticism are exactly the same thing. And they're the same as Christianity and Buddhism. And as you said before in your introduction, that they were all Christians. Everyone was Christian. In fact, Eusebius and Saint Augustine and Origen of Alexandria and all the church fathers, they said there never was a time when there was no Christianity. There never was. Since the universe was incepted, this earth is a Christian earth.
Mm.
Christ means consciousness. Chit, consciousness. It's conscious. Christ came. It's not dead. We're not zombies. So Christ did come in the flesh, not as a person, but in the flesh. This is the flesh. We use our mind in the field, in the conscious field of Christ. That's how gracious Christ is, that he downgraded himself to the demiurge from the monad, the second logos, to create this beautiful redshift, blue shift world, so we could fumble and bumble and sin and do good things, and at the end write our biography and go back to our home. And how great it is that Christ is returning. And in fact, I believe that today, the 9th of June, the day that Jupiter enters Cancer, where he exalts, and you'll be there for around about a year, I believe that that's the return of Christ. In other words, the sun is vibrating at a frequency which is now elevating the people who are awake, not the woke, our field is rising. So we are not only rising in consciousness, we are expanding in consciousness, and we have all fields of human knowledge. We know about gematria, we know about astrology. We're not scared of that. We don't believe it's pseudoscience and what the officials say and what the churches say that's from the devil. And we know about Hermeticism and Judaism and Kabbalah, and we know about sacred sex and saving the seed, which is why little boys were sent to seminaries called seminaries. Wonder why little boys would be sent to seminaries to become a priest when the other boys who wanted to be doctors went to a university.
Right.
What has semen got to do with ascending and Christ consciousness now, I wonder?
To become peers with each other, right? Peers. Wisdom, right? Well,
before the Jesuits infiltrated the seminaries and introduced sodomy and destroyed the concept of saving the seed and teaching the boys how to use their sexual energy so as not to ejaculate but injaculate, and therefore inseminating themselves and not someone else first. No use going around inseminating women and getting them pregnant, or your wife or anyone, before you do it to yourself. If a man has not had at least one ejaculation, he is not even minimally conscious.
That's what I'm always saying.
That's funny. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. The unconscious woke people are all ejaculators.
Nut up or shut up is what I'm always saying. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, man, you don't give that DNA with magnesium and potassium and all these chromium and all this amazing life force substance to anybody, because that person will be a vampire forever,
Yep.
connected to you.
Wow.
Yeah, we've all had experiences with energy vampires. I know everyone can relate to that. Santos, can you tell us how you first got into Giordano, Bruno? Forgive me if you've already said it before, but we'd love to hear.
Okay, so in 2013, I toured Europe and did a syncretism tour, right? So when I was in Rome, we went to Piazza dei Fiori in 2013. It was July. And I brought the the syncretists of Rome to the piazza. And I've got a 6-minute video. I'm going to give it to you. And then you can actually convert it. It's on Odyssey, because they pulled my big 300,000 subscribership YouTube Mr. Theology. It's gone. So, but it was saved on BitChute. I put it in the chat there for you. There you go. And you'll see me and the Italian group of syncretists doing a 1-minute silence homage to the great Giordano Bruno.
Mm-hmm.
And
how did you come across his works? Like, was there a moment where you discovered him, or do you remember it all?
No, I don't. But I don't know how he escaped me before I became. I left the Jehovah's Witnesses in 2005, so I've been, knocking on doors trying to save people's asses since I was 3. But I woke up from that delusion in 2005. Then 2007, since I was good Jehovah's Witness, I read the Bible backwards, inside out, upside down, and every which way. And I was reading things like I shouldn't have, like astrology, hermetic wisdom. I was reading everything since I was 14, since I left school. I left at 14 and a half because the teachers were just more stupid than me, and I knew it. And I thought, wow. Yeah, I'm getting out of here. I don't want to be indoctrinated.
Wow, I had never heard you mention that, actually. I didn't know that you left school at 14.
14 and a half. 15 was the legal age, but I got caught smoking 3 times, right? So the third time you get caught smoking, you get pulled up to the vice president's office. And he was a little man called Chimpy. He looked like a chimpanzee. We used to call him Chimpy. And Chimpy, after he gave me the cuts, which with the 6 straight cane bashings on my hands, right? Yeah. Whack, whack, whack. And then he said to me, "You got 2 choices, Bonacci. You're a troublemaker and you'll never amount to anything. Either we suspend you or you can leave." And I kept my poker face, straight face, going, did he just say I can just freaking leave and not wait another 6 months of torture till I reach 15? Did he just give me that option? And I'm like, yeah, well, I'll leave. And then I was pissing myself laughing for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful. So, but it hurt on the hands, man. That Chimpy, he gave me the cuts. And Percy, the principal, who turned out to be a pedophile, Mr. Percy, I don't know how many times I would get the cuts. You know, the cane on the hands. I get pulled up. Bonacci to the office.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
This is in Australia, right?
Yeah, in college. It was a technical college. Because I was Jehovah's Witness and not Catholic, my cousins went to the Wangaratta, the other college. I went to the Catholic. So all my cousins went to the Wangaratta Catholic College, which was the best. So I had the option. Yeah, I had the option of going to a technical college. So I learned a lot. Like, I mean, I learned how to make a radio there. I learned how to make miniature automobiles. I learned how to temper steel in the, you know, I learned a lot of crafts, but which I was grateful for. But the other indoctrination stuff that was going on, that was too much for me, man. I already knew that I was already way beyond this, and I got to get out of here. So the day I left school, I joined the Double-Day Book Club, and I got all these books: history, geography, the conquistadors, Egypt, the pyramids. So I had a library set up by the time I was 14, right? Full big library, nose in the library, right? So, but I don't know how Giordano Bruno escaped me until about 2007, I think 2008, around there. And then I paid attention. I really paid attention. But I knew of all the other guys. I was reading, as a teenager, I was reading Immanuel Velikovsky and Alexander Hislop, The Two Babylons, and Reen Norbergen, Secrets of the Lost Races. I mean, I can name a list of these syncretic and spiritual science books that really expanded my consciousness, but I still didn't get it till 2007. I was an astronomer, a linguist by birth, bilingual, and then now multilingual, I guess a polyglot. Love languages, you know, I just love it. I love them. So I had all that context. I was a musician, accomplished musician. In fact, I had Sony approached me with a really lucrative contract, and I declined it because I don't sign my work to the devil. And so, where was I going? So that period there, from 2007 to 2011, when I released my Mr. Astrotheology YouTube channel, and with my whiteboard presentations based on the sine wave, uniting all fields of human knowledge. In those 4 years, I think I cooked my eyes reading 12 hours a day. Book upon book upon book upon book, every single day, no rest, no rest. And you can see in all of my presentations how haggard I look. I look like I look like I'm dying, and it grosses me out sometimes to look at my own presentations back in 2011, because my idea, since my mother and father taught me how to save people as a good Jehovah's Witness Christian, was to save people, right? And so I was saving myself and thanking the universe for the syncretism that just sort of came, because I did all the hard work since I was a teenager, reading and reading and reading and reading, but not putting the jigsaw puzzle bits together. But they all came together in 2007, right? And then I was thinking for 4 years, I have to get this out, you know, and I don't know how. I don't know how am I going to get this out, because I know I've got it. I've got the thing, the quintessence, you know, the substance, the truth of that substance, you know. So eventually, knowing that I was looking haggard and awful, just I put my ugly face on my first presentation, and knowing that I was looking really skinny and awful, and recommending vegetarianism as well. And so people will be thinking, he's a vegetarian and it looks like he's dying, and that's not a good thing. But yeah, it was because I was trying to save other people's asses and not my own. And a year ago, I retired, and guess what? I found bliss and the secret of bliss. No more pleasure and pain. So, wow. Yeah.
Let me ask you, before we get too far from it, when you got kicked out of school, what were you smoking?
Tobacco.
Oh, okay. Well, I just noticed a little bit of a parallel here. I think all four of us have been kicked out for smoking or doing something else. So we're united in that. Seriously, all four of us.
That
Yeah.
actually is true. That's kind of funny.
I'll be right back. Shane, take it away. You guys.
I want to show you this. I still smoke tobacco, guys, not cigarettes, which do cause cancer, but real tobacco. And why do I do that? Because I'm stupid? No, because it's got nicotine in it.
It's funny.
And I only have one of these a day. That's all you need, but you need nicotine. See the work of Dr. Ardis, where he talks about eating foods rich in nicotine, tomatoes, all the nightshade plants, tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplants. And number one is tobacco. I haven't had a flu for 6 years. I don't get the flu, the cold. It doesn't happen because I don't have toxins in me. I detox constantly. Enemas, coffee enemas, ozone enemas. But I'm still smoking, and this is what got me out of school.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's all good. Let's see what else. You know who we just interviewed, Santos? We did an interview with Ken Wheeler. Do you remember? You did a few things with Ken. He wrote the introduction to our first book, it was a collection that had Plotinus, Porphyry, Proclus, a bunch of Neoplatonist works translated by Thomas Taylor, who I know you're a fan of those translations. And we had Ken write the intro, and he was great to work with, actually. He's such a nice guy. And we just interviewed him over email, so we're gonna be posting that to our website kind of soon. Should be fun.
Yeah, Ken's a superstar. Look, hats off to that guy. I always say to people, if you want to complement the work that I do, there are three guys. Ken Wheeler, number one. Frank Chester, number two. If you don't know about the Chesterhedron, you don't know how the polyhedras, the 5 pentatonic solids, how they go from tetra to hexa to octa to dodeca to icosahedron. How does that happen? How do liquids become solids? How do gases become solids, and vice versa? Right? Frank Chester. Frank Chester is a superstar. He calls the sixth polyhedra that he discovered and he proves it. He is the discoverer of the sixth Platonic solid, so-called. And he called it the Chesterhedron.
Wow.
And the other guy is a great Jewish scholar called Stan Tenen. He is now passed away, like Jordan Maxwell, rest in peace. But Stan Tenen, check his work, Dance of the Hebrew Alphabet. You'll be blown away.
Yep. Is that the Apple core with the finger tool? Yeah, that's awesome.
And he shows the middle of the apple is the flat earth, the planet on which we live, and the sun going around the top, and Hades below, and the apple. We live in the big apple. We live in an apple. We are an apple. Adam has an apple. Eve ate the apple, and they're our ancestors. So we come from our ancestors who both had an apple. For some reason, an apple had to be associated with Adam and Eve, our ancestors. Why? Because the Taurus field is an apple. You look like, if you could open your eyes and see what a dog or a horse or an eagle sees, you would see an apple around your body, an electromagnetic rainbow apple. We are apples.
Apollo's in there too, right? The word Apollo.
Apple.
Oh, in Apple, yeah, Apollo.
Yeah. In Proto-Celtic, abal means apple. Bala, the hyperbola, which is what Ken Wheeler says is, well, it's the hyperbola inside the torus field, and you can't talk about torus fields unless you talk about hyperbolas, because they're one and the same. So
what did you say the name of the shape was? The chestahedron?
Yeah, like polyhedra.
This chick showed me her chestahedron last night. Actually, come to think of it,
you guys are going to be blown away with Stan Tenen, and yeah, you already know him. One of you, I forget, but anyway. Frank Chester is such a humble, beautiful, sweet man, and he has discovered one of the greatest things in history. He needs to be preached about, have billboards all over the earth.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a big deal. And actually, we talked a little bit earlier, and it can be kind of the elephant in the room regarding Giordano Bruno. But I was wondering if you could talk about some of your opinions on Giordano Bruno as far as cosmology goes, and round Earth, globe Earth, flat Earth. I know you had shared that maybe you think some of his works had been compromised.
Yeah. So I don't believe he was compromised, because why was he chased out of Switzerland, France, freaking Germany, Prague,
England, yeah,
and then ended up in England, and he's in the ear of Queen Elizabeth, teaching her all about this new stuff that Marsilio Ficino had translated, which is the perennial wisdom, and said, why don't we make England a country based on this? Hence, when the Puritans, or the Pilgrims rather, the Pilgrims, when they first went across the ocean, what did they bring? Hermeticism. The Puritans, they brought the Jesuits and the Catholic Church, and false Protestantism, Lutheranism, Calvinism, and the Baptist Church. The Baptists came from the Anabaptists. They were the true flat earth Protestants. The modern Baptists, they believe, like everyone else, that we're flying around on the globe. The true Protestants, like the Socinians, the Waldenses, the Albigenses, the Cathars, the Lollards, the Polish Brethren, the Bogomils, etc., right? They were snuffed out. Bye-bye, flat earth Protestants. There's a new world order, and it's called the New World Order, and it has an agenda. It's got a global agenda, global lockdowns, global warming, global society, global economy, global community, global governance, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And there is no globe, just a flat earth, stationary, doesn't move. Where's it going? It doesn't move, right?
Yeah.
We know that, you see. But see, only people who have that conscious field really, really expanded can know that whatever is of the frequency of solid, which is called Earth in astrology, can only be on a network and a grid which is level. The liquids and the gas and the plasma and everything else, that doesn't stay on the plane of inertia, which is solid, which has to be, can't be a globe, it has to be a flat plane, it has to be a grid. We know we're living on the grid, the planetary grid, blah, 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 blah. Right? So that is how the frequency, there are 5 frequencies in the universe, right? There's solid, liquid, gas, plasma, and ether, right? Thumbs up for ether. So Earth gets to be at the bottom of the Kabbalistic tree. There you go. There's Keter and there's Malkuth. So the Earth is a frequency.
Now, Santos, you've also pointed out before that the planet Earth is a near anagram for the heart plane and plane of inertia, right? So the heart plane, Earth is green, the heart is green, right?
Yeah, brother. Yeah, exactly. So the plane of inertia is the planet of Eartha, because it is in inertia. Nature, natural, that's and neutral. All those words, those three words, nature, natural, and neutral, is this plane that we live on. It has to be. It can't be moved. We can't be just zipping around willy-nilly, a la Big Bang, and be so stable. And
The big gay gangbang.
Yeah. So I believe that Giordano's Bruno's works were not revealed for 300 years because the Jesuits were busy changing little bits and pieces there, making him a supporter of Copernicus, which he would never, ever, ever, ever be because he was no dunce.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's possible that his support of Copernicanism was as a more of an allegory or symbol, as the sun is like the prime mover, a sort of monad?
Yep, as per the
centering around that. Yeah.
As per the Jesuits' wish, because you see, they play both sides. Martin Luther and Calvin have been known to say that we are not going to accept this Copernican New World Order. They said that. I can show you the quotes. I'll have to look for it and I'll get them in 1 minute. But I can read you exactly what they said, Martin Luther and John Calvin. And they were sending Hermetists and philosophers across the ocean to get away from the persecution, right, to the free America, so-called. And then hot on their trails were the Jesuits. And they conquered the Americas, yeah? So this is the thing, that everything is corrupted. So they play both sides. They actually funded John Calvin and Martin Luther, and yet they said that they wouldn't accept Copernicus. So the Medicis were the ones who were actually the first ones since before Copernicus in 1492. They didn't have a globe, right? So how did they find America? What map did they use, please? Because they didn't have a Copernican globe. So what map did they use? It was the stationary Earth true map. And Magellan, who supposedly circumnavigated the Earth, the first person in history, without a map. You look for the map that Magellan used.
Mm-hmm.
You won't find it. And in fact, they say he didn't use one. He just did it. Clever boy.
Right.
So,
clever boy. That's funny.
Yeah. So it took years for them. It took them 300 years. Then they brought out Galileo in the 1600s, and yet it moves. And Galileo means, in Italian, in Latin, to move. And Galilei is plural, to move. So here's the guy who started the Copernican revolution, who started the world turning, and supposedly recanted and said under his breath, and yet it moves. His name means it moves. It moves. Twice. And Nicholas Copernicus happens to have Nick, Saint Nick, the devil in his name twice. Nick,
Yeah.
Copernic, ass, because he was a jackass.
That's funny.
Now, do you think that Giordano Bruno would have objected more to Galileo's teachings if he'd stuck around and kind of heard some of that? Do you think he would have found more to disagree with versus, because, you know, Copernicus is more sun at the center. Galileo came around and gave us the round earth. Now, you know, Santos, you know that Mercury and Venus never stray too far from the sun. And I think that Copernicus was doing his, you know, I don't know the guy. I know, you know, we don't know what he was thinking, but there is something to be explained with two of the planets kind of clinging to the sun. And I think they're just trying to explain that to the best of their ability. And then the Jesuits seized on it and said, aha, that's the perfect explanation. You know, the round, the heliocentrism. But, you know, speaking of the Jesuits, on my channel, we talk a lot about Florida history, right? We're old world Florida. And the Spanish showing up very, very early, right? Shortly after Columbus. Florida was discovered in pursuit of the Fountain of Youth. And not many people know that Florida has more freshwater springs than anywhere else on Earth by a lot. And it just so happens it was the Jesuits who were the first missionaries all across Florida. They would cut off people's noses. They would feed them to the dogs. They would, you know, you name it. Why do you think the Jesuits jumped on America as fast as they could, right? You're in Mexico, you know, you know a little bit about the Jesuit presence.
Yeah, first and foremostly, a Jesuit and a Jew are two sides of the same coin. Okay,
they're the Jews who believe in Jesus, right? That's a nickname.
They are marranos. In other words, they are disguised as Christians doing the work of Christ, hence the Society of Jesus. But if you go to Wikipedia and you put the word Inquisition in Wikipedia, in the third paragraph, you will find that in the middle of COVID 2022, the Inquisition changed its name to the Dicastry of the Doctrine of the Faith. And before that, they changed it a year before I was born in 1962. And then before that, it was changed in 1908. And before that, it was changed again in the 1700s. And it's never gone away. And the fact that Wikipedia just tells you right there, nice and sweet, that the Inquisition is now called the Dicastry of the Doctrine of the Faith, run by the Jesuits. So are we under the Inquisition or not? Go to Wikipedia and find out, guys. You want to be free, or do you want to be under the Inquisition? Nobody expects a Spanish Inquisition.
Right.
You guys are not.
Yeah.
We've got a bit of a Spanish Inquisition going on right now at the southern border, actually.
That's funny.
So it's getting pretty icy out there.
A lot of people don't know, too, that the Spanish Inquisition was not formally ended. You know, Santos is saying maybe it's ongoing, but was not formally ended until Napoleon invaded the Iberian Peninsula. So Napoleon comes in to Spain, and this is the 1800s, and he finally puts it to an end. So it was ongoing for quite some time, probably 100 to 200 years past what most people would guess. And like Santos said, it may have just gone underground or changed the name, you know, and sort of be operating more, I don't know, covertly. But
well, they just openly, it's there in Wikipedia telling you the whole history of it, and that they changed their name 2 years ago in the middle of their global lockdown. They don't got a globe. Hello, Jesuits, everybody, all you Jesuits, you haven't got a globe. And if you want to sue me and take me to court, which I'm going to do eventually, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sue the Society of Jesus, the Vatican, the Holy See, the Roman Curia, and NASA, I will sue them for no evidence, not even a half a bee's dick of evidence that they have a globe. And I'm going to go in there and destroy it. So let them sue me so that I can countersue them and bring us back, like Giordano Bruno said, to the days of old and the ancient wisdom, because they were way smarter than we are. I wouldn't say smarter, I would say intelligent. Today we're smart with our smartphones. We're clever. You know, like the jails are full of clever people, right? But not intelligent. So why don't we go back to the Egyptian flat stationary earth and the Mayan and the Australian Aboriginal and the Indians and the Chinese and the Japanese and Scandinavians, the Nordics, the Aztec, and every single other culture that had a stationary flat earth. Let's just default back to what was and be intelligent.
It's important to note, too, that Galileo did, like you said, he recanted to the Inquisition, was placed on house arrest for the rest of his life. Giordano Bruno did not recant. So Giordano Bruno was in captivity for 7 years in Rome, being tried by the Vatican. And these are trials sometimes where the Pope is present. I mean, these are a big deal. The Pope is like the judge, you know, and he was held. We don't have any details on what was being done to him over those 7 years. We can imagine that it was probably heinous. For obvious reasons, they don't keep records, you know, of the tortures, or who knows, God knows what they were doing to him. And he refused for 7 straight years. And I don't know about you guys. Maybe Santos would. If you're torturing me for 7 years, I might take the house. I might take the house arrest. I don't know. But he refused no matter what. And even, you know, they're giving him a chance while they're about to light him on fire. And they placed, like Santos said, they nailed through his tongue. A square
case around his head his tongue was stretched right out with a nail through it.
And they put a necklace of gunpowder, balls of gunpowder around him, just to make sure that he would not survive. I mean, this is somebody who really meant, you know, people think they're truthers. Like, yeah, we'll see if you're a truther when you're under the Roman Inquisition, you know.
When you've got the exploding necklace on.
Yeah, right. When you got the exploding necklace on, we'll see if you're a real truther. This guy took it to the grave, you know.
And I believe they rode him in on a donkey, so he almost had the Dionysian or like Christ-like archetype appearance.
Yeah, and his famous last words. I know Santos said that he went to the Fiori, Campo dei Fiori in Italy, which is where the famous statue is now, that the cover of our book is based on. They have now put up a statue where he was burned to kind of martyr him. But his last words to his executioner were, "Perhaps you who give me the sentence do so with more fear than I who receive the sentence." I mean, this guy, he meant business. I mean, seriously, that takes something else.
Now
people who described him at his trial too also described him as being almost halfway out of his body at that point, in an almost enlightened state, where he had no care for the body or body punishments.
Well, let's talk about what exactly he did to get himself in so much trouble, and also, you know, his memory tricks, because I know, right, he denied the Trinity. Was that the greatest crime that he did? Denied the Trinity?
I believe,
or that's the accusation.
Maintained the Trinity, but it was a completely heretical interpretation. Perhaps more on a Neoplatonic line.
But also, you know, his ability in memory sent shivers down the spines of people who couldn't understand it, that they tried to attribute his extraordinary memory to demonic possession and all this, right? So let's talk about his memory a little bit and the astrological kind of framework for his memory system. I'd love to get into that. Whoever wants to take it.
I can give a little brief
okay.
introduction.
Yeah.
So if you're to go to look at any Renaissance writings of memory masters, it'll appear to be some of the most surreal literature you've ever read. And in fact, it was very influential to a lot of surrealists in the early 1900s and even to this day. The way that it works is that one method is a memory palace, which has one imagine a palace in their head, and as you walk through the interior, each room is filled with all sorts of objects that have correlations to things that you have to remember. And these correlations are oftentimes astrological. And so you can imagine that if you have an entire like palace or mansion filled with all sorts of strange astrologically aligned animals, objects, creatures, you're going to have quite a court. And
Right.
so Giordano Bruno, being a master of both astrology and memory, would have had these incredible, fantastic associations. And Shane, I didn't know if you had anything to detail that with the charts and things that he had created.
Yeah, so Bruno was known throughout all of Europe for his memory. He's still studied today for his memory. Tony and I have had a few talks with Anthony Medavere, who teaches memory on YouTube right now. And he's kind of a memory expert. And he still reads Bruno. So people are still reading Giordano Bruno's writings of memory in 2025. And we're talking, this is from the late 1500s. So he is considered one of, if not the greatest memory magician of all time. He was able to memorize, half a book in a night. He could memorize anything you handed him by using mnemonic tricks. Like Tony said, memory palaces, astrological correlations, letter correlations, number correlations, and creating memory wheels, using sigils of words and implanting the sigils into the unconscious, basically, so that they were deep in the memory. He had a very deep and mystical understanding of what memory was and how to use it. And that is a big reason, Santos touched on it earlier, of how he was able to travel all throughout Europe. That's a big reason that he was in the courts of Queen Elizabeth I, or in the court of Rudolph II in Prague, was he was being hired to teach people memory. Because before you had, this is before the printing press, by the way. So before you had books published widely, before you had, or sorry, slightly after the printing press, but not widely available. Before you had books widely available, before you had, any of technology like we have, to be able to memorize something was almost a superpower, right? If you were able to memorize all kinds of information, you were like a human computer. And so he was being hired by princes and kings and queens in Germany, in France, in England, in the Holy Roman Empire, in Prague, to teach them memory mnemonic devices, which would make them into almost these magical kind of superhumans of the time. If you were able to dazzle people with your memory, and these are not just party tricks too. To memorize something is to become deeply familiar with it. It is at a level of your mind that is past the kind of conscious thinking mind. It is, now implanted into you in a kind of unconscious way, which can probably have deep effects on you. And if he was able to use Kabbalah, astrology, and all of those things to kind of hold it all together, to unify things. And I think we've all experienced this. I know Santos and Dr. Longo, I'm sure, have, and Tony as well. If you meet somebody and you say, hey, when's your birthday? And they say March 16th. And you're like, oh, you're a Pisces. You'll probably never forget that they're a Pisces. That astrological correspondence is at a very deep level. It speaks to their essence. But you'll probably remember, oh, they're a Pisces. But if someone said, yeah, what day? You would have no idea. You'd forget that in 10 seconds. Because March 16th, not that important. Pisces, really important. And
I always say I'm more likely to remember your sign than I am to remember your name. And that's got to be the most simplistic level of what Bruno's kind of laid out in his system. But yeah, it's true. It's elemental knowledge, right? It's not so much, it doesn't get stored in the same place as names and dates and so on. Would you agree with that, Santos? How does astrology factor into your memory, and do you see this we know everything trickles down from the stars. It only makes sense that that's kind of the filing cabinet that reality's filed with, is astrology. Will you touch on that?
Yeah, for sure. It's in every single one of everything that I've published. That the sine wave, as Walter Russell put it very succinctly in the preface, not the preface, actually the first page of his book, I forget the name now, I'm embarrassed, but anyway, the great Walter Russell, he said, the secret of creation lies in the wave. So the wave, people think positive and negative. That's duality. A wave has 12 conditions on it. A wave has 360 degrees, and it has 12 30-degree conditions along it, whether it's a thought wave, an emotion wave, a light, sound, or whatever other wave. It starts at Aries and begins in Taurus. So when they teach you in quantum physics there, it's always positive, negative. You see how limited if you're thinking in 2 instead of 12.
Right.
Jesus had 12 disciples, Jason had 12 voyages, Hercules had 12 labors, Jacob had 12 sons, Israel had 12 tribes. There are 12 trees in the river in the book of Revelation, the river of life. There are 12 pillars in the temple of my God, says Jesus in Revelation. There's 12 here and there's 12 there. And then you hear that the two most famous Jewish scholars, Philo of Alexandria and Josephus, said that everything in the Bible that has 12, wherever you see 12 and 7, it's astrological.
Right.
And they were Platonists. Of course, the world is Platonic, because we don't necessarily need to know whether he was a real man or not, but his consciousness was passed through his writings, right? And Pythagoras didn't write anything, but others, like Ovid in the Metamorphoses, quoting him, verbatim and what have you, somehow that was left in the field, right? So all of these contributors to the field, they're still there. Giordano Bruno's listening to us, and he knows that everything is a waveform. Everything is waves. Everything is waving, waving, waving. And every wave is a 12ness, not a 13, like the Ophiuchans want. Oh, we want Ophiuchus. He's got his toe on the inside the zodiac belt. We want to squeeze him in there and make a new sign, the new age Jesuit, blah, blah, blah. No. Science is that every wave has 360 degrees and 12 30-degree differentiations of conditions along them. Mm-hmm. The first part of every wave is cardinal fire, Aries. The second part of every wave is fixed earth, Taurus. Gemini, mutable air, Cancer, cardinal water. Leo, fixed fire. Virgo, mutable earth. Libra, cardinal air. Scorpio, fixed water. Sagittarius, mutable fire. Capricorn, cardinal earth. Aquarius, fixed air. and Pisces, mutable water.
Mhm.
If you call yourself a scientist, if you call yourself a doctor or a physician or a scientist or someone who knows, and you don't know about these 12 conditions that must exist for fluidity to exist in a projected physical 3D world, if you don't know about these 12 conditions, oh boy, man, you will go to your grave, and on the other side, you will regret it with all your life.
Now, Santos, I'm actually an Ophiuchus. No, just kidding, just kidding. I'd love to dunk on the 13 signers for a little, if you'll entertain me. This is something I love doing on my channel, is pointing out the Jesuit psyop of the 13 zodiac signs. And I want to point out to people that they're just misguided. We all want to kind of crack the egg and get to the deeper level of truth. But not every single thing is a conspiracy or wrong, right? Just because the 12 signs of the zodiac have always been around doesn't mean they're part of the system. Like Santos is saying, that the 12 is ingrained in the fabric of reality. Now, 13 is a valid number, but it's a lunar system. Isn't that right? It's lunar. And when we count...
Exactly.
So people... Go ahead.
Go. No, you go.
I was going to say, people are often quick to point out, oh, well, 364 days. That's our 13 system. No. That's counting how many times the sun and moon come up and down. That's not degrees. The 364 days fit inside the 360 degrees. That's the polyrhythm of the year. So 12 is over here, solar system. Keep your 13 separate. 13 is lunar. 13 times 28, perfect system in its own right. Nothing to do with the solar zodiac. Zodia means 12. It means animals, but it means 12 too. 2, zo, dia, 10. 12 system. Case closed. Now, Ophiuchus is a constellation, not a sign. Not a sign.
Yeah, but a deacon. Also condition that. It's a constellation, but it's a deacon of Scorpio. It will never be a sign.
Yeah. And Santos brought up a good point earlier, too, about knowing your signs. When in the Garden of Eden, astrology is laid out in the Garden of Eden. Not a creation of man, not a creation of the devil. God says, when he creates the heavens, the stars, let them be for signs and for seasons. Not only did God create the signs, they're more important than the seasons. And kind of like Santos was saying, would you rather understand your reality by a dual nature or a 12ness? You know, a homeless man can tell the seasons apart. A hamster can tell the seasons apart. A wise man, it takes subtle kind of attention to tell the 12 signs of the zodiac apart. But that's my 2 cents on the 12 versus 13. People are just misguided in this. They think they're going after a deeper truth, but they're really confusing the solar with the lunar. Go get your guitar and try and play it with 13 notes. It's going to sound like dog shit. It's going to sound terrible. You're violating the 12 system by trying to attach the 13 to it. They're separate, solar and lunar. Anything you want to add to that, Santos, about the 13 and the psyop?
Yeah, but before I do, can you put that Wikipedia link on Ophiuchus up on the screen, please? Because I want to show people how silly, I'm being kind, silly they are to think that. Well, first of all, let's make this clear. There are 12 signs and there are 13 months. Month comes from the moon. The sun doesn't have any months. The sun does not own any months. The moon owns the months. The Jesuits removed the 13-month calendar, which was running consecutively forever with the 12 signs. They removed it in the 1700s. Well, why would they do that? Oh, because now the slaves get 1 monthly salary less. That's the whole reason why they removed the lunar calendar. People that get a monthly check are kind of stupid because they're getting ripped off. You shouldn't be getting 12 checks. You should be getting 13. There are 13 months.
Right.
And that's kindergarten. So we need to go back and reinstate that calendar. But have a read of, no, have you got the link that I sent you? Ophiuchus Astrology. Punch in the word Ophiuchus Astrology, both of those words. I don't know, you've got the wrong article there, brother. Somehow, okay. I think you've got the wrong article. But go down a little bit. Let's see what it says. Keep going down.
This is the right one. I just switched it.
All right. Well, let's just go down slowly. Steve, we're looking for a name. Steve Schmidt. He's the guy. He's the schmuck who. There it is, Schmidt. There it is. Have a look at that name there. Look at this thug, Jesuit idiot, and all these people who follow his cult. In 1970, Stephen Schmidt suggested a freaking 14th zodiac sign or a 13th one and another one with a penis on it and then another one with a bum. And we're going to change the whole universal historical construct of everything that ever was and will ever be. And we're going to fart out of our mouths a stupid freaking idea for all the dumb bums, and now he's got a cult of Ophiuchus followers. Stupid as dog poo.
Right. And do you think that music is a proper analogy? Because again, with the moon, no shade on the moon, but you're counting repetitions. You're counting rising and setting for the 13 times 28, 364 system. You're just counting something going up and down. Whereas the 12 and 360 system, this isn't necessarily something you count, right? It's the energy of light itself, right? It's the electromagnetic spectrum. So am I correct in saying if you were to try and tune a guitar with 13 notes, a 13-note scale, you're going to get nothing, right? It's no harmony, right?
Yeah, more or less. You can do it. It's said that it's being done, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's not as like perfect as the 432 frequency as opposed to 440, right? It's you can have 11 notes. In blues, there's pentatonic, right? Then there's diatonic or heptatonic.
Right.
7, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So, but the thing is, you got to make that stuff sound good, man. And there aren't enough cents, to squeeze in another note. You'd have to have a 13th note. You'd need another, 12 or 13.
Right.
Cents, so it doesn't work. It's 12. There are 12 musical notes, as there are 12 chromatic colors in the rainbow, not 7.
Now, Santos, since I got you, I think a lot of people would like to hear your take on the non-visible planets or the semi-visible. So Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Where do you stand on the discovery of those planets, their validity in astrology? I'll tell you personally, I like to use them. But I know many of my friends are very hesitant and say, well, isn't that a NASA psyop? We can't see those with our naked eye. And where do you stand on those? The non-visible, semi-visible.
That's another big fat lie. Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune were known since forever. They weren't discovered. They were not discovered. Like Australia wasn't discovered. It was already freaking there. Captain Cook did not discover Australia. So this freaking, what was his name? The guy who's in the 1780 something discovered Uranus, and then in 1850 the Neptune, and then in 1935 it was Pluto and all of this, right?
William Herschel.
Yeah. basically what they were just doing is in all the resets and in all the mutilating of the doctrines of old, they teach falsities that can be disproven quite easily. The 52 Babylonian card system has Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in it since forever. So the Babylonians had all the 10 since forever. So it was not discovered. They were always there. The only reason you see so many charts from antiquity which only have the 7 traditional ruling planets is simply because those were the necessary planets of the consciousness of the time. Thomas H. Burgoyne says that the reason that if you're going to read a chart of someone who is unawakened, don't bother reading about Uranus in the 4th house, Pluto in the 9th, and Neptune in the 7th, because they don't understand those frequencies. You have to activate. You have to activate a lot more chakras to actually add those 3 planets into the whole 10, which there are. Uranus is the dome, the firmament. Sorry, Neptune is Poseidon, the waters above, and we always knew about him. The river Styx. You got to pay the ferryman to get to Pluto, which is the primum mobile. So we have the primum mobile, the first motion, ruled by Pluto. The crystalline sea below that, ruled by Neptune, Poseidon. And Pluto, by the way, is Hades. Remember, you have to pay the ferryman at the river Styx to cross Hades. Well, that's Pluto. To get to where? Beyond Pluto is what's called the habitation of the blessed who dwell with God, something like that. Okay, don't. So we have the vault of heaven, Pluto. Then we have the dome of heaven, Neptune, the crystalline sea. Then we have the firmament, Uranus. Uranus means the sky. The firmament is different to the dome and the vault. Right? So, yeah, and Uranus is, you can see it like with a telescope, right? Because that's the center of the hyperbola that you're looking at. It's a wormhole. The sun's a wormhole. Mercury's, they're all wormholes. They're not actual globes out there. Like the rainbow is not there. You can't land a helicopter on a rainbow because it's not there. You just see it there. So the sun and the moon, well, the moon's transparent for 28 out of 29 days anyway, right? So obviously it's not a rock. So, and I'd like to know, where did the astronauts land? Did they land on the transparent bit where you can see stars through it and you can see sky and planes flying past that? Did they land on that bit or the little white crescent bit? Or did they land on the moon, the new moon, when it's invisible to the human eye for 60 hours, 2.5 days? So every new moon, or if there's any globies listening, this will disprove exactly in 1 minute whether the moon is a rock or whether it's plasma. Why is it all of a sudden at the new moon it's conjunct the sun, and you go out there at midday and you're looking for the moon because your star application, your sky watch in your phone says the moon's right there next to the sun, but you can't see it. It's invisible. Well, holy shit. There's the moon rock theory gone right out. It's just use your eyes. Common sense.
Yeah, and all the moon rocks they brought back are largely frauded, right? Fraudulent. They got caught bringing back fake moon rocks. But Santos, do you think the Sumerians were kind of on the money with pieces of artwork like this? Is this what they're trying to depict? the 10 planet system.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with the sun in the center, because the sun is the producer and director of the whole freaking show. Take the sun out and everybody goes bye-bye. In fact, when the sun rises, the stars get scared, poop their panties and disappear, and you can't see them, but they're there because your sky app tells you there's Taurus, but you don't see no stars. You see a blue sky. Why would the sky be blue? Shouldn't it be black, the abyss, out of space, just no light? Why does it have light? Oh, well, because it's a mirror, isn't it?
And we know that the moon is not spherical because there would be a light spot on the closest point to us. You get a fully illuminated moon. It's a hologram. It is round, can't be spherical. It simply cannot be spherical. If we're saying that's the sunlight striking it, where it strikes it closest to us would be twice as bright as the parts farther away from us. You know, if you get a ball, you shine a light at it, you get a light spot. The moon has a uniform brightness on a full moon, especially.
Absolutely impossible to be a sphere. Absolutely impossible to be spherical. In fact, it is concave because it's actually sucking light out of the. It is dielectric and it's black. It's black light, so it's cold. It is drawing light and energy from the earth. The sun is giving it. It is the Christ, the giver, the savior. But they need each other. We need the magnetism from the sun, which perturbates the field and gives us the light, agitating the noble gases in the atmosphere. And then we need the moon sucking that shit out like an exhaust pipe. And that's what it's doing.
Yeah, guys, if the moon was a sphere, you would see this every night. You'd see a light spot. Okay. Unless the moon is solid selenite or something where, you know, it's giving this prismatic effect, you know, can't be a solid ball up in the sky. That's my position.
And besides, it'd have to be made of something reflective like silicon or something like that, and it's not. Mm-hmm. So how do rocks reflect so like opaquely pasted in the sky without these, you know, bright spots, you know, hot spots?
Right. It's so uniform, the amount of light. Did you guys see that a Japanese like private company tried sending a craft to the moon like a week ago and it failed? It apparently crashed into the moon, but it did. You can pull it up, Dr. Longo. I forgot the name of the company, but they just had a moon mission fail, the Japanese, and it's pretty funny. They said they're going to try again in a few years. It sounds expensive.
How about all these bozos who say that on the dark side of the moon there's already facilities and
med beds, QAnon med beds on the back of the moon.
Yeah, it's like saying there are fairies and dragons and pixicorns and unicorns in the rainbow. Let's go and get them, bring them home, and put them in the friggin' stable.
Yeah. Now, Santos, I think a theme to all that would be the materialization of transcendental concepts, right? And another way, kind of a way to demonstrate this is, yes, there was a women's suffrage movement in the 20s or whatever, and the women's rights movement. But when the woman fully had her femininity stripped from her, and women kind of the role of women kind of downplayed, reduced in society, was when we sent a rocket, quote unquote, to the moon. Now, this psychological operation, think about the symbolism of sending a picture
Oops.
I think Mossad just scrambled our service there for a second. But
Yeah.
what's the symbolism of sending a dick-shaped rocket up to the moon? Are they trying to rape the universal mother goddess archetype? And I noticed that when they hit the rocket, when they hit the moon with the rocket, feminism, we've been in a feminist kind of delusion ever since. They really kind of knocked the mother archetype out of the home, out of society with that, rocket to the moon.
The true feminine, because
Yeah.
the modern woman is absolutely demon possessed and toxic, neurotic, and psychotic.
Amen.
We're talking about the real feminine,
Yeah. Yeah.
not the modern word. And by the way, modern and demon are anagrams of each other. So the demon age in which we are in has really gone after the women because. You can tell, the feminist movement is a Jesuit thing. It's a Rockefeller thing, etc. It's a psyop to destroy true femininity and destroy true masculinity with this toxic masculinity thing now, and go along with it. They just don't think for themselves, man. Think for yourself. None of that exists. It only exists on this social media shit and the fake agenda people, LGBTQ plus, and all of this Black Lives Matter. They're all just psyops, man.
Yeah.
We gotta see through that stuff, man, and all of these false flags that are going on. LA at the moment, that's obviously a real no-brainer, man. It's so ridiculously obvious that it looks like there's a new boss in town, and I don't think the bad boss is being supported that much because of all of his psyops. False flags now are like, within days there are hundreds of videos seeing all the holes through them, like these women that went to space recently. I mean, there's not one human being alive that thinks that was true. They all know that was just fake shit, right? But tomorrow comes along and we go to work and we talk about global weather and global this and global. People don't even know where they live. They've got 3 live brain cells fighting for 4th place. They're brain damaged. They're freaking psychotic. They've been educated. Thank God I left school at 14 and a half, man. Woo! That's why I'm intelligent. And
Yes,
I'm not an intellectual. I'm not an educated intellectual. Don't please never, ever, use that word as though it was a trophy or something like that. Just be intelligent. That's it.
And Dr. Longo, I think you missed it earlier, but Santos was talking about the medicinal powers of tobacco. And I thought maybe, I know you indulge, and I thought maybe you could wrap that into Florida as well. I know we have a pretty rich tobacco history, or at least like the Americas and their role.
So the word tobacco itself arguably comes from Tampa Bay. And I think you'll appreciate some of these phonetic links, Santos. The story of Pocahontas, right? Speaking of Jesuit psyops, okay, and English intelligence operations. The Spanish were in Florida about 100 years before the English showed up to America. And of course, they started in the Caribbean, but they gain a foothold in America first in Florida. Now, they go to Tampa Bay, Hernando de Soto, the Narvaez expedition, and this town, Tampa Bay, used to be called, or the people that lived there were called the Tocobaga. Tocobaga. Now, yes, there's other alleged origins for the word tobacco, but none of them have the word toke in them. Tocobaga is the true origin of the word tobacco. And how do we know that? We can corroborate it because today that area is called Tampa Bay. What is it called when we pack down a pipe? To tamp. If you're a tamper, that instrument, you tamp down a pipe. That also comes from Florida. And this is so important because this is the kind of the underside of the Pocahontas John Rolfe story. John Smith and John Rolfe. I think that was his name, Rolfe. Now, tobacco, the Spanish were sending tobacco back to Europe in the 1500s from Florida. The English didn't start in the 1600s. But the English wanted to claim kind of primacy, or, you know, that they got there first. So the Spanish, they had stories about the Princess Eulalie, who had saved a Spanish conquistador from being murdered. A real story came out of Tampa Bay, that same tribe who was smoking tobacco. And Tocobaga means place of the gourds. We all know what the earliest pipes were made out of. Gourds. Tampa Bay is the place of the gourds. So we have Tamp, Tocobaga, 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 and then place of the gourds. So why doesn't Florida get credit for tobacco? Because when the English got to Virginia, they started planting tobacco. And when John Smith gets back to England, he directly plagiarizes a Spanish story about the Princess Eulalie of Tampa Bay saving Juan Ortiz. John Ortiz, Juan Ortiz, right? That's like the Spanish, as basic as John Smith. Now, John Smith might have even been fake, but the John Smith Pocahontas story, PSYOP, sets the stage for the John Rolfe tobacco story. He's the man who's given credit for first, what's the word? Kind of planting it. There's a word. Whatever, getting the tobacco industry kicked off in Europe. So that comes out of Tampa Bay. And I've always seen tobacco as kind of, we all know weeds in the Bible. In Eurasia, that's kind of the mother herb of Eurasia. Tobacco's kind of the great herb of the Americas. And so much has came out of these last 500 years because we see the fusion of tobacco consciousness and cannabis consciousness. That's the real explosion of the modern world, the last 500 years. All the music, all the this and that. But what else about tobacco? I can talk about anything with tobacco, but
tobacco here in Mexico and Peru is considered to be the most sacred plant, and next to it is cannabis. So you see, when you smoke cigarettes, you die of lung cancer because they've got chemicals. But if you get God's plant, which is natural, full of nicotine, which boosts your immune system, like I said before, I haven't had flu for 6 years because I'm nicotined up. Mm-hmm. And for all of you people who want to know the importance of nicotine, Dr. Ardis, what's his name proper? Hang on.
Yeah, the redheaded guy, right?
Yeah.
He's great.
Brian Ardis, I think. And yeah, and he sells products like nicotine patches. I had a woman who came to visit me from Canada, a syncretist, a friend, and she bought that's him. She bought his nicotine gums, and I was chewing them for the 10 days that she was here. And wow, man, when you're on nicotine like that, and he's got patches and everything, and he explains that you only need the 4: tobacco, eggplant, tomato, and potatoes. Potatoes have starch, but it doesn't matter. If you're drinking a lot of juices and a lot of fruit, potato will, give you the satiation, if you need it. There's only 2 things that I will have that are considered starchy and bad, because I don't eat much cooked food, right? But At night, because I'm in the mountains here at 7,000 feet in San Cristobal, Chiapas, it gets cold and you can't have fruit. You have to have something hot. So I make a soup or something like that, right? But if I default to something that's going to make me, feel satiated, there's only two things: potatoes and rice. Not spaghetti. I haven't had spaghetti for a million years. I wouldn't have anything else. And I manage that, I manage that. I had a woman from Ireland, and we know that they know about potatoes like they do in Idaho, right? So
We're Irish, yeah.
You're talking to some potato boys right here. I think I eat potatoes every single day.
yeah, imagine if you're an Irish in Idaho, you'd be in like heaven, potatoes.
Oh yeah.
Now, so she used to tell me, this lovely woman, she says, Santos, eat potatoes every day. Eat potatoes. The Irish know this secret. Eat them.
Yep.
Well, Santos, Tesla was very big on potatoes. He said it was a miracle food. He said it provided every nutrient the body needed. But Rudolf Steiner, why was Rudolf Steiner anti-potato? He said it was a confused food. What's your take on that?
And so does John Giordano, the guy who in the 80s wrote the book about you eating according to your blood type. And me and my mother, we used to be students of his, and he said that there's only one useless food, and that's potatoes. It's totally useless. And A, blood type, O, A, B, and B, none of them can eat it. It's toxic, and it really screws up the interaction with the blood, right? So yeah, I know about the people who warn about the nightshade plants, and because
well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go.
I was gonna say, personally, the blood type thing is bullshit. It's a last ditch effort for the carnivore industry to prop itself up. They need the O. They tell, if you're O, you really need meat, because O is the most popular blood type. That's like 90% of the world. So that they know they can cut their losses with that one. Cows, 800 blood types. 800 blood types in ox across the world. They only eat two things: fresh greens, dry greens. Fresh grass, dry grass. That's it. Blood type diet, complete nonsense. Carnivore psyop to get people to think they need flesh.
Sure.
Totally false.
Yeah. To answer your Steiner question, Rudolf Steiner did disapprove of potatoes pretty heavily as a mystic, but his view is very mystical. So he saw them, like many people will say, potatoes are grounding or beans are grounding. They're very earthy foods. They're literally coming from beneath the earth, and they're dark colored. They're earthy colors. And that's his opposition to potatoes.
Well,
he saw it as being material, or like holding you down from these higher astral realms. I don't agree with that. I'm just saying that was his position.
I've heard him go into more depth about how the fruit of a tree at the top corresponds to the body and nourishes the body down below, whereas the roots nourish what's up and high, the intelligence, right? And he believed that, like the radish and the turnip and beet, he said those were superior for the consciousness, for intelligence. He said that the potato is a confusing food because it's neither. It's in between. He said that it's a swollen stem. It's a tuber. And he said it'll pretty much have that effect on you. I don't believe that either.
No.
But it's also worth noting, pretty much no one eats potatoes raw, right? So I don't know if he was just talking about raw potatoes or juicing potatoes, or cooking potatoes, mashed potatoes, Cole Cannon potatoes, Irish potatoes. My favorite food.
Yeah,
my favorite foods.
I think Steiner also just to take Steiner took it a little bit of a step further in that a lot of alcohols are produced from potatoes,
Okay, right.
vodkas and things like that. And so, as a general rule, if you're avoiding the potatoes, you're probably going to avoid the alcohols too. So,
Good point.
yeah.
Well,
There's the classic claim that potato-based diets make you into an alcoholic as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, we've never had a drop of alcohol, Shane and I, in our whole lives, and we eat more potatoes than most people on the block. So
there you go. Yeah.
Case closed.
Here's an interesting fact. If you juice a potato and you drink that, you'll die in about 5 minutes.
Really?
Well, that's probably the source of the you know, kind of war, right?
The reason is because it's an antiparasitic. It kills all the parasites at once, instantly. They defecate, you die.
Wow.
So if you eat potatoes regularly, you are deparasiting.
Really? I didn't know about that one.
It's an antiparasitic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I make delicious potato and sweet potato soup.
Well, we're gonna have to rename this stream the divine properties of the potato, I think. But
is there a Taurus field on the potato as well?
On everything. All is atom. All is atom. All.
I believe
nice.
Yeah, I need no convincing.
For sure.
Sweet.
So I gave you the video of me at Piazza dei Fiori. You guys, do you want to play that before we, do you want to play that? Just a little bit?
Sure.
Just that minute of silence.
Yeah. I know Tony had a question about some of the noble families during the Renaissance for you, Santos. Maybe we could get that question in while Connor is pulling that up.
So you sent me the link for the Palmyra video. Are you saying it's the moment of silence is in?
Wait a minute. I haven't sent it to you at all. Let's do that now. There you go.
Sweet.
Got it. Thank you.
And so that was a tribute, and then I spoke a little bit in Italian and then in English, and that's the Piazza dei Fiori right in front of Giordano Bruno. So go to the start. I can see it's in the middle. Go to the very start. Yeah, that's it.
Mi hai preso di dietro? Ehi, siamo arrivati direttamente. C'è un'altra amica da prendere. Francesca. Vieni con voi? Sì. Qualcosa da dire, no? Qualcosa da dire davanti a questa statua? Sono in piena gratitudine per questo monumento. Proprio incredibile. Okay, here we are having dinner at Piazza dei Fiori, and there's the statue.
Just go forward. So where we do the minute of silence, it's toward. Here we are. Yeah, here's the group. So we go back. Right.
Rome group of syncretism. It's July 28th, and we'll have a panorama view of all the small group. This is the group from syncretism and Rome, and here we are in Campo dei Fiori, Piazza dei Fiori, where Giordano Bruno was burnt alive. As you can see behind us, the bottom words, Dove il rogo arse. So this is where he was burnt, where the fire was. So this is just a gesture of appreciation for everything that Giordano Bruno has stood for, and that we are here to carry on his work. He did not die in vain. For sure. Now for Italian. Siamo qui uniti dopo il gruppo di sincretismo in Roma, luglio 28. Questo è il gruppo il rimanente del gruppo. Siamo usciti per pranzare questa sera ed ecco che siamo qui nel Campo dei Fiori, dove il rogo arse, dove fu bruciato Giordano Bruno per aver detto la verità, solo la verità. Siamo qui a fare un gesto di apprezzamento per il nostro fratello che è andato avanti per noi in verità, e in quei giorni si bruciavano vivi quelli che dicevano la verità. L'inquisizione ancora continua finora, ecco perché abbiamo parlato di sincretismo e sovranità oggi. Quindi questo è un gesto per dire che Giordano Bruno non è morto in vano, per niente.
All right.
Yeah. So that was our little tribute, the Rome syncretist group. I spoke there for 2 days and spoke in Florence for 4 days and 2 days in Lucca, Tuscany, and the only one that was recorded that's online is the two days I did in Lucca. But it's a shame because that group there, I did a great presentation in Italian. They loved it. To speak in Florence for 4 days back then, it was like the place I was staying at in the hills. You could look down and see the dome. You could see all of Florence, and we're up there, and there's about 100 people came, man, from Italy. I was only online for 2 years, and the Italians, everywhere I went to Rome, and they were hugging and kissing me, and like, yay, one of our people, you're Italian, right? So,
Right.
but they embraced me and everything, and they just looked after me so well. And I wish those 4 days they were filmed. It was in the contract. I said to the organizer, it has to be filmed, it has to be free for everybody forever. And that guy that filmed it, and the same in Rome. That's the deal I always do when I do presentations. Half of the presentations I've done all around the world haven't seen the light of day. They're on someone's computer. Yeah.
They were Jesuits in disguise.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
They were on John McAfee's hard drive, weren't they?
Well, there's just fools that I work with that I took for intelligent, that knew the value of what I was teaching. Imagine those 4 days in Florence and Rome.
Yeah.
The sovereignty I spoke about there in the Piazza dei Fiori. We spoke about sovereignty, syncretism, sacred sex, astrology and everything. Imagine how 6 days of Hermetic wisdom would have blessed the Italians. And those people have still got that stuff on their hard drive.
Wow. Yeah, it'd be a second Renaissance.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll resurface.
Yeah, that's true. I brought it up a little bit earlier, but Tony had a question about some of the noble families of the Renaissance. I know, Santos, you've covered like the Medicis, the Borgias extensively. Is that Tony?
Would I be able to share my screen?
Yeah, I can do that. If you hit the present option at the bottom.
Because the book does cover some interesting material that's found in some of those noble families, like we said with the Medicis. They're very heavily involved with some of the more occult sides of the Renaissance. And our book contains pictures from some of their buildings and things that they commissioned.
Yeah, they were the benefactors for a lot of philosophers like Giovanni Pico della Mirandola,
Tommaso. He's covered in the book.
Yeah. Well, the Medicis were what was it? I forget which one it was, but one of them was like Emperor Julian. You know, his uncle Constantine created fake Christianity, and he reverted it back, for which he was murdered. And he wrote books about he wrote a book saying the lying Galilees. You know, in other words, debunking the historical Jesus myth, the Emperor of Rome. This was one of the greatest men who ever lived. But who was I talking about though? Before that, one of the
Medicis.
Yeah,
huh?
the Medici.
One of the
family.
Medicis.
Yeah. So occasionally there's a pope who turns up that is really, really good and a benefactor of humanity, like Pope Clements III, who in 1773 outlawed the Jesuits. So the Americans got smart. They got their Articles of Confederation, their Constitution and rights all together. And 3 years later, in 1776, they're a republic. And the same year that the Illuminati were founded, because that's what they always do. So, but that was Pope Clement XIII. He kicked the Jesuits out. He banned the Jesuits. They came back in the 1800s, and then they destroyed Tartaria with their revolutions, right? So, going back to Medici's, I think it was Giovanni de Medici who was the good guy, and then his successor turned out to be useless.
Well, it's kind of like the Astors or the Kennedys, right? There can always be a glimmer of light that pops out of this kind of nasty family. And, you know, we don't want to be the type of people who's foolish. Is it foolish or wise to hear Medici and go, oh, bad guy? Is it foolish or wise to hear Farnese and say, oh, bad guy? Now, generally, that's probably the case, but we have to delay kind of judgment.
I'm not sure which Borgia it was that commissioned this papal apartment, but these are the images that we sought from the Vatican. This here shows the ceiling. I believe this is the room of the Sibyls, and it is extremely syncretic. Around the edges, we have the Sibyls that predicted the coming of Christ during Roman times. And around here, we have astrological scenes showing chariots and processions of various signs. And over here is hidden Hermes Trismegistus in the allegory of astrology. And this is one that is completely unidentified by the Vatican that I believe Yeats might have been one of the first to notice, symbolizing the entire mystical tradition here with the zodiacal astrolabe. And since the time that Yeats produced the book, some of these figures have even faded, perhaps it was restored, but perhaps some sort of intentional
defacing,
obfuscating, has occurred.
Yeah, and these are in the Vatican. Is that correct?
Yes, these are in the Vatican.
Wow.
You can tour these, but I think most tourists do not know about them.
And so that's one of the things that, you know, that Yeats in this book is trying to get across is like, hey, you can walk into the Vatican, into the Borgia apartments, and it's covered with astrology.
Yes.
It's covered with Egyptian mythology.
Completely covered. You can see here every single one of these images displays an astrological theme. They were extremely interested in this sort of thing. And it was not, I mean, it was a little controversial, but it was not considered too out of the ordinary. Whereas today, if the Vatican was to commission something like this, I think people around the world would be revolting against the church. And it's syncretic, of course, because you have these symbols predicting Christ. It's very interesting. And so down here, sorry, did you want to speak on this?
I'll just interject that these buildings were appropriated from the Tartarian era. Remember that. It wasn't the Borgia commissioning Michelangelo and all that bullshit they tell you. This is Tartaria. Tartaria was Christian, just as Russia still is today, and the whole world is. And the church fathers said that there never was a time in history that Christianity didn't exist. It's just that now we that think that we're calling it Christianity and it's a new thing. It's not. It's simply not. It's a universal fact that it is a substitute word for perennial philosophy.
Yeah.
Opus, etc.
Right.
The Prisca Theologia.
Yeah, Prisca Theologia. And
go ahead.
So I was going to say that it continues to get more interesting with the syncretism as this one displays themes and stories from Egyptian mythology. You can see over here the pyramids depicted in various like ornate styles, and an Apis bull here, which I'll show you in the next slide. Shows various people worshiping the Apis bull, and you might ask why this is so important. And here you see the Apis bull worshiping the cross with a papal tiara here. And this is because the Borgias wanted to trace their bloodlines back to ancient Egypt, perhaps to the line of the pharaohs, or even to a god itself. And given that the Borgias family symbol was a bull, they chose the Apis bull, which is also one that was revered by, I believe, Alexander the Great. Visited the Apis bull temple. Santos, do you know anything about that?
Alexander the Great would have gone to Egypt and seen Serapis in Alexandria for sure, because that's the city named after him. So, what was the question again? I'll hone in
about the Borgia bloodlines, the attempt to trace that all the way back to ancient Egypt.
Oh yeah. It's a known fact. In fact, the emperor that I mentioned, Julian the Apostate, naughty boy, fancy getting rid of Constantine's corporate Christianity.
A Neoplatonist too.
Yes.
Yeah. So the question again. Gee, man, I derailed.
The attempt to trace it back to trace the bloodlines all the way back.
Well, okay, yeah. So Julian the Emperor, he said that he was the reincarnation of Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great lived in the mirror. If you take the year 0, and you go back, you get about 350 years, or 300 and thereabouts, when Alexander the Great lived. Then AD, 300 in year 350 AD, here's Julian the Emperor, a young man, and he said that his ancestry was Greek. And see, this is the thing. We tend to think that first it was Egypt, then it was Medo-Persia, then Babylon, then Assyria, then Greek, then Rome, and then the Anglo-American world power. No, it's not like that. There were no deserts in Egypt a couple of hundred years ago. Gurdjieff himself, whilst traveling through Georgia, he went to a monastery, and the monks there showed him a map of Egypt from only 200 years prior, and it was all a jungle, and it was all a perfectly clean, untouched civilization.
That's incredible. Yeah, it makes sense. People say the same thing about the Sahara too these days. I think that was also a green space until not too long ago.
Yeah, that was directed energy weapons. I mean, they talk about wildfires in Los Angeles. We need to say smart fires because that's what they are.
Hmm.
They're not wildfires. Those are not wildfires. I've been through
Yeah.
fires in Australia. I know what a wildfire is, and those are smart fires.
A lot of people are saying that about Hawaii as well. Very, very tragic.
Right.
Yeah, they're all smart. We got to start getting that out. Smart fires, smart fires,
Smart
smart
fires.
weather, smart tornadoes. It's not wild weather. It's all been done by geoengineering. George Soros, Larry Fink, Ted frickin' what's his name? All these BlackRock frickin' Vanguard guys and all these.
Yeah.
They'll be in jail soon, man. Look, they're going to hell, so that's guaranteed.
Sure.
And why are they building bunkers? Are they scared of something that's about to come because Christ has returned? And in fact, it returned today in tropical astrology, not sidereal, because Jupiter entered Cancer today,
Right.
where he exalts. So watch what happens. Watch the blessings and the expansion of consciousness that is going to come upon us. We've had Jupiter in Gemini fucking things up for a year and a half or whatever, where he's in detriment. And that mutable sign is a real head F, because it's a two-faced, changeable, and now we're in the
It's exalted.
Huh?
Jupiter's exalted now.
Yeah, and now is on July the 9th, June the 9th, right? In the what are we? June the 9th. So it's still Gemini, but you'll see.
Yeah.
That those guys are going to be hiding in their bunkers, but guess what? They're going to be snuffed out down there. They're all going to be snuffed out because all of our enemies, they're not aliens and they're not coming from the sky. They're coming from under the earth where they were cast down.
Yeah. I was wondering, probably wrap up in a little bit, but I was wondering if you have any thoughts or wisdom related to Mithras and the cults of Mithras. Somewhat related. I know they got some popularity in the Renaissance too. So I thought maybe I'd see if you had anything interesting to say about that.
Oh yeah. Comes from the Zoroastrian from Persia. The Persians, they built Rome, the Farnese family. And Rome was Mithraic for 500, 600 years before it was Christian. Constantine kicked Mithra out with his 12 disciples.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, let's convene a council in France, in Nicaea, and let's invite all the priests and to bring all the holy books, that we shall make one holy book for Christianity, corporate Christianity, 501c3 corporate Christianity. And there were I think there were 2,800 holy books and gospels that were presented, but they canonized 66 books. So all these Protestants who think, you have to read the King James Version, the Bible has to have 66 books. You're not Protestants. You are Catholic. It's a Catholic book. The Bible is a Catholic book. And if you want proof of that, go to the three original texts: the Sinaiticus, the Alexandrian manuscript, and the Vaticanus. Well, what's the shepherd of Hermes doing in the Sinaiticus? Just asking. And what are all the other books that are doing in that original Bible? Didn't Constantine pay any attention to that Sinaiticus, which all Christians say is the foundation of every single translation? 3 texts, 3 of them. That's all we have. And all of them have books that are not in the Constantine canonized Bible. So all you Protestants, Jehovah's Witnesses and moron Mormons and
Hang on now.
Jehovah's Witnesses, stop saying you're Protestants. You've
Hang
got
on.
a Catholic book.
That is true. The canon is obviously decided by the Orthodox and Catholic churches.
Well, Santos, you brought up a good point about. Now, I'm a King James version guy. I think in English that's as good as it gets. Now, how much of Giordano Bruno, through the ear of Queen Elizabeth, and along with John Dee and Francis
John
Bacon,
Dee, yeah.
how
Robert Flood.
How much Bruno or Bruno's influence do you think was had on the King James version, which not many people know? And even though I believe he died, he didn't get to see it fully printed. It was actually the Queen Elizabeth Bible, with the whole Shakespeare, the Society of the Spear Shaker. Does Bruno have anything to do with that through Queen Elizabeth?
Yeah, man. Yeah. He influenced her muchly. It's a known fact. Yeah, he was trying to make England what the Pilgrims ran away from to go to America. He said, "Why are we letting these people go to America, man? Make it here in England." That's why England still retains, just as the America does, they still retain that seed of their origins, of that respect and that high refinement of things that are important to humanity. We still look up to those countries,
Right.
Well, now they've been usurped by corporations, but it's still there.
Santos, I've heard you say, we're probably getting close to the end of our stream here, but there's maybe 2 or 3 questions that I've always wanted to ask you, if you'll entertain me, and they're relevant. I've heard you say once or twice that English is an ancient language. Now, I don't want to misquote you. I could have sworn I've heard you say that at least once, that English is an old language, or at least an old writing system.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that?
All of this stuff where they say that it's an amalgamation of Greek, Latin, French, Nordic, and Celtic, and blah blah blah. English has always been. It's always been. It is. It's the language of angels, as are all languages. When you read history and what they tell you about English and stuff filtered through the eyes of mutilated agenda books, you'll never understand how precious English is, as equally as is Japanese, Hebrew, and Sanskrit. But English is the most eye-opening language to astrotheology that exists. I've done Portuguese, French, Spanish, Italian, English presentations on syncretism, and they're all good. The connections are there still, because I proved that there's only one language. It's called atomology, hence etymology, and therefore all language is atomic. If you go back to the atom, all words come from all the words in all the languages in all the universe come from 3 words: Tom, bull, and tor. How many words in English end in bull? Reliable,
capable,
capable. How many end in tor? Creator, actor, administrator. Why is the torus field and the hyperbola at the end of every single freaking word in English and in other languages? And I've proven that. And I've proven that it always means tor is always red and bull is always blue, red shift, blue shift. It's right there in our words. In Spanish, it's the same thing. Creator, creador, dor. See, the D and the T are interchangeable. So now here, creator, torus field, becomes door. Door is Dorothy, golden god. Dorothy, El Dorado, the gold, the doorway. The yellow brick road, you see. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. It's all that the same thing.
Right. And another one that I've always wanted to ask you, I've heard you bring up Jim Chestner a couple times. How much have you gotten into the Bach saga? And what's your take on the Bach saga?
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant, man.
And I just real quick, I'd like to point out that kind of brings a lot of this full circle, because long before the Catholics were burning people like Giordano Bruno in Rome, they spearheaded a mission to the North Pole, which put an end to the Bach dynasty, the ancient Finnish bloodlines of Europe. And this is where we get words like Finnish line, Finnish, the sex act, fine, that's a fine woman. If you want to define something, you need to go to Finland to do it, right? You don't want to be a deaf Phoenician. So because I've heard you talk about Jim Chestner. I've never heard you go into the Bach saga. And Jim Chestner, why he's so important is because he's the only, to my knowledge, the only true native English speaker to receive the Bach saga and fully kind of blossom it out into the English language too. So give us a little gravy on that if you got any.
Yeah, I was watching his stuff back in 2007, 2008, and he absolutely syncretizes the whole thing and shows you that the 26 original letters of the English language are exactly where they should be. Abkadevki, Jekyll, Manovsky, Krustovixes. It's a word. The alphabet is a word. It's a spell. It's a blessing and a curse. That's why Big Bird in Sesame Street said, I want to know what this word is. And I said, it's the alphabet. But hang on, it says Abkadevki, Jekyll, Manovsky, Christu. Christu vixis. Christ the victor is. See, why in the alphabet? Why is Christ hiding in the alphabet? Q-R-S-T-U. All in a row.
Yep.
And why
also lemon. Lemon, like Lemminkainen. Yeah.
Lemon, which is the elements. LMN, right? So that's the moon light. The Cristo in the alphabet, that is the sunlight in the alphabet, and A, B, C, D, abracadabra, is the black sun, the beginning, the source. So you have three lights in the alphabet. You have A, B, C, D, abracadabra, opening the word of God. And then in the very middle of the alphabet is the letter M. Interesting.
Right.
And you have LMN, which is all of the elements, the moon. And then you just go a few letters over and you've got Christo. And I've done the runes. I've done 2 presentations on the Nordic and the Celtic runes. I've done work on the Bach saga. I've watched all of his stuff. All of it is absolutely correct. The letters and what they mean. The letter R, he says, is Ra, the sun. There is only sun. The sun is the giver of life. If the sun wasn't there, nothing would exist. So Tycho Brahe, rather than Copernicus and Kepler, had the true model. It's actually helio and geocentric at the same time.
Wow. And Tycho Brahe was with Giordano Bruno in Prague. With Rudolph. So they were they knew each other.
They killed him too. Because he had the true solar system, which is the one that I'm teaching. It's geocentric and the planets are heliocentric.
Yeah. And this is actually why the Bach saga is so important, because just like Hebrew has that apple core secret to it. The runic system, as per the Bach Saga, is kind of using the sky and the North Pole as that core of the apple. The Bach Saga says that you get the English letters by sticking a stick in the ground and the sun casting a shadow in different ways. It's also worth noting the original Finnish, if you go to Finnish mythology right now, they'll have one of the best flat earth models to date for the original Finnish cosmology. Why would that be? Because they're closest to the North Pole. They have the best perspective of the heavens. If an astrologer wants to be in the North Pole, it's got to be the best place for an astrologer, right? 100%.
Perfectly aligned. In Australia, I used to watch the sun rise from the right and set at the left. Now I'm here in Mexico. The east, where the sun rises, is to my left, and the sun sets to its right. So astrologically, all the charts are facing south from the North Pole. It's not two-way. Astrology is not a two-way thing. That's why people think, well, you were born in Australia when it was autumn, Santos, March the 24th. You're not Aries, you're Libra. No, the sun is in the 30 degrees on the wave, on the ecliptic, in Aries. Therefore, everything is Aries, period.
Yeah. And nothing needs to get switched because there's only one pole.
Well,
so yes, the seasons may be swapped. The stars aren't swapped. It's an inherently polar centric science, astrology, and there's only one pole.
My son's Libran, right? Now, if you know the difference between an Arian and a Libran, you'll know that I'm not. I don't got nothing of Libra, and this is all Aries with a Leo rising, sweetheart. So yeah, if there are, I've seen jackasses out there saying, see, astrology is wrong because it says the wrong season over there in the southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Do another fart, please. You're too stupid. There's too many people that are too stupid that have got platforms of stupidity and farts. And people go there and smell their farts and clap. and they pay the money.
Not here, yeah.
Shout out Mind Unveiled.
That's funny. No, we're all about the truth with the bookstore, with the books that we publish, with Dr. Longo's channel. We're trying to continue on the Santos legacy.
Let's go ahead, Santos.
So before we forget, now on my website, I have had a list of all the books that I recommend. All right? It disappeared because my site got hacked, but I've got guys rebuilding it. In a week, my list of recommended books to buy will be there. I want you guys to get that and get those books in your shop and get all Floridians and all people from around the world, rather than buying from Amazon, buy from your store there in Florida.
Absolutely, yeah. We're gonna stock everything on the list that you give us.
It'll
be on our website as well. The store is called The Dancing Elephant. Dr. Longo is showing the bookstore as we speak.
Yep.
It's in Lake Worth Beach, Florida. We do have a website. It's dancingelephant.shop. We publish books through galaglassbooks.shop. And yeah, it's a metaphysical bookstore. So we have huge sections on astrology, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism. We sell history books, art, Native American things, Judaism, Kabbalah, things on Florida history. It's pretty comprehensive. The store was founded in 1972. Me and Tony and Dr. Longo own it now and run it. But it was started in the 70s. It had, at one point, customers like John Lennon and other people.
The wife of Donald Trump.
Yeah, one of Trump's wives would come in for tarot readings and things like that. So it's been an institution in South Florida for quite a while. But if you've not made a visit, definitely make it down. he was just showing all the gemstones and things like that. It's really a special place, and there's not many bookstores in the country, in the United States, let alone the world, like this. That really we have one focus, and it's the truth. Really, it's metaphysics, it's world religions, mythology, astrology, all of that. So yeah, and we're going to be carrying all of Santos's recommendations.
So I want to remind your listeners and mine, because this is going to be uploaded to my channel. Please, guys, get Giordano this revised edition of Francis Yates' great work. She brought him back out of the shadows 300 years in the tomb. This woman, she poured out her blood for humanity, and she gave us this work, and now it has, with the permission of the estate, it has been revised with all these more syncretic, up-to-date, beautiful color pictures. And get it, guys. Do that for yourself, for humanity.
Yeah.
You know,
it is a limited edition too, so we only printed 2,500 copies. We, like you said, we did license it, so this is not in the public domain. We did have to get permission and pay to the rights to republish this, and part of that agreement was to make it limited. And so there are only 2,500. We've sold about 1,000, so there's about 1,500 copies left. Yeah, it has a custom ordered Italian paper, like it's published on a glossy paper, so all those colored pictures really pop. It has, like you see on the screen, a gold foiling like they used to do on old books, of an obelisk. And yeah, it's how we make a living. So
And Shane,
so it's a sexy book as well. So
it
it's
is.
a sexy book.
It is. Yeah, it is.
It's got Italian paper, and you know
It does. There you go.
Italians are known for their sexy cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Maseratis.
Yes. It's a
We
Ferrari
like
book.
the cars with curves.
it's because the Italians are half
why do
black.
Italians?
That's funny. What were you gonna ask me?
Yeah.
I said the Italians are half black,
Why
right,
do the
Santos? From the waist down.
That's funny.
That's a fact. You can search that. Who are the? Yeah,
Oh, I've been hearing you say
guys
that
are
for,
always on top, and the Italians.
yeah. I've been hearing you say that for 10 years.
So, but what a fine question to ask. Why do Italians like to make cars sexy? I think about that a lot. Something to think about. I mean, the Swedes, they are very technological, but their Volvos, they ain't sexy.
No.
Unless you think so. I don't. But yeah, there you go. Italian paper. There you go. Good book. Sexy book.
Why don't you tell Santos about our first book?
Yeah, the first book that we did sold out. It was called Monad. It's up on the screen. That was a collection I mentioned earlier that had Plotinus, Porphyry, and Proclus, all of their writings in one volume, all translated by Thomas Taylor. It has an introduction to the book by Ken Wheeler, who I know Santos is friends with, and kind of says is a peer of his, or somebody maybe on his level, and we definitely agree with that. He is a living Neoplatonist. He's a translator, probably a genius, I would say. And that book sold out. It was really something special. I know they're kind of expensive now. People are reselling them online. So yeah, hopefully the Bruno book goes well too. So get it while you can, I guess.
And we've got 2 copies for you, Santos. As soon as we can get them to you, we will. And if you got to come to Florida to come get them, that's fine by us. We got a place where we'll be happy to host you if you ever want to come over and check out the store. We're just across the pond. And we got some copies. We'll save a copy of this one for you too. But Santos, anything else you want to say before we
it's so
close up?
interesting.
I think we're on a lag. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I just want to mention that it's interesting that Plotinus is Ken Wheeler's favorite Neoplatonist, but his student Porphyry is mine. Porphyry is on the top. Emperor Julian said that Iamblichus, the student of Porphyry, was greater than Plato and Pythagoras, the greatest mind that ever visited the earth. But the teacher of Iamblichus, Porphyry, I think he is the one, because why did they destroy his 12 volumes on astrology? And yet we still have the Porphyry house system in astrology. I can do Placidus and I can do Porphyry, and they're very, very similar. Why do we still have the Porphyry house system, but we can't find anywhere on the earth his famous 12 volumes on astrology?
Why?
Interesting. And he also wrote a treatise on why it is not human to eat flesh. Why the evils of eating flesh.
Right.
Yeah,
You might find this
time.
interesting.
All the Neoplatonists work.
We asked Ken Wheeler what should be included in a Neoplatonic compilation and listed a few things we were going to add already. And he emphasized, he said, you have to include Porphyry. Please include Porphyry. And so we added a bunch of his essays in there, and one of them is the vegetarian treatise
on the abstinence of animal flesh, right? Abstinence from animal flesh, right?
Yes,
that's it.
And Santos, if it
the other two.
Sorry, we're on a lag here. I don't know if that's Mossad or the Jesuits doing that to us, but
yeah,
we're getting all scrambled here.
Same thing.
Yeah, we should wrap it up anyway.
Same difference.
We would love to have you back on. If there's ever a topic you want to kind of drive home, you've always got a platform with us. And again, if you find a way to get one of these books mailed to you, we're happy to send it to you. And yeah, hope to stay in touch, Santos. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Where can people go subscribe to you now? Where can they find you now?
I'm only doing work in the private. I've retired from doing public interviews. This is an exception. So join my Patreon. That's where you'll find the best work that I've ever done, hiding for free. You can join for free. Just Mr. Astrotheology. It's called Mr. Astrotheology. Join that Patreon, right? And tomorrow I'm going to be doing astrology. I'm going to be doing 9/11. I'm going to visit the 2 plane hits, and I'm going to show all the planets. All the planets tell the tale of what happened on that day. I'm doing that tomorrow at 2 p.m. Mexico Central Standard Time, and you can go back months and months and find my best syncretism I've ever done for free.
Awesome. So guys, we've got Santos's Patreon up on screen here. Patreon.com/Mr. Astrotheology with no dot. And Tony, anything you want to say in closing? You're muted.
No, nothing. Just check out Giordano, Bruno, and the Hermetic Tradition. Follow us on Instagram at Galloglass Books. Follow us on Twitter at GalloglassPB. And we'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony. And Shane hopped off. We'll say goodnight to Shane. Santos, it's been great meeting you. You're one of my greatest teachers. I mean, I hope I'm making you proud a little bit if you ever go check out my YouTube channel. We stay on the geocentric astrology. My brother and I have been vegetarian for about 10 years, so never had a drop of alcohol. So we're on your team, man. If you ever need anything from us, you just let us know, okay? Thanks, Santos.
Yeah, brother.
Peace.
Stay on the
Everyone
path,
out.
man.
We will.
Stay on that path.
Everyone out there, thanks for joining. We got about 750 or so tonight across the platforms. Thanks, everyone. Go show some gratitude. Go subscribe to Santos, and especially go get yourself a copy of Giordano, Bruno, and the Hermetic Tradition. If you don't have this book, are you even on the side of light and love and wisdom? And I don't know. But make sure you get a copy of this. And if you're going to be coming to Florida anytime soon, stop into the Dancing Elephant bookstore. And we have a lot of hard copies here at the store. So if you want to come in and get it, that's fine by us too. Thanks, everyone. Peace. Oh, wait, we got a lot of people in the chat. There's a lot of good discussions to be had. I'm going to run a long outro. Boom. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Play nice in the chat.
Yeah. Wild Indian, yeah.
Hey, V, line them up.
I'm a wild Indian, you know I go crazy. Ain't really Indian, that boy fugazi. I just keep it player, you can never play me. You got an ass so fat, girl, let's make a baby. And another one. Then I'm back to the trap, I'm trying double some. She a bad woke chick and I love her tongue. We some jurisdiction boys, we some one-on-ones. Look, don't compare me to no Martin dog, I'm like Malcolm X. Die about our freedom, we'll leave a crack and stretch. Round of applause, boy, you know we clapping text. Chucky dog, child's play, yeah, nigga, that's what's next. Open up the cans just like Arizona. Pull up masked up like we got the Rona. We set up jurisdictions when we buy the corner. How you claiming that's your hood and you not the owner? Be the B, I just pulled up in the need for speed. Free the land, tell the colonizers that they need to leave. Wild Indian up in my veins, you know how we bleed. You ain't gotta lie about who we is, dog, just keep it G. We at war, we can't keep the peace. Since we at war, gotta keep the peace. Whack a cone, then I meditate. Should I need to breathe? Keep a Olmec head when we slide, dog, cause we the shit.
Like my niggas said, bitch, we the shit. I can't keep the peace. If it pop off, then I want a piece. I'm just on release. I'm in go mode, motherfucker thief. In these streets like EBT, when we at war, make peace with me. I don't give a damn, understand. Fuck who stole this land, white or black or tan. Understand, it's fuck who stole this land. Might have seen me get little buddy these hands. He wasn't no abo man. A lot of these dudes is Sambo man. They full of shit like my ammo can. What they call an N-word out the wrong mouth, that's an ambulance. Wild Indian, get it in advance, or you can post date it. Ask around, I'm the most hated. Straight sacred, they stole acreage. Yo, ape shit, show ain't shit. It won't be televised, I don't tape shit.
Be the B, I just pulled up in the need for speed. Free the land, tell the colonizers that they need to leave. Wild Indian up in my veins, you know how we bleed. You ain't gotta lie about who we is, dog, just keep it G. We at war, we can't keep the peace. Since we at war, gotta keep the peace. Whack a cone, then I meditate. Should I need to breathe? Keep a Olmec head when we slide, dog, cause we the shit.